Redditors who've wanna spend a day with so and so celebrity contest. How was it? Didn't win a competition, but I was the only person to turn up to a book signing by my favorite author, Brian Jacques. His books were only starting to be published here, but I had been reading them for years in England. The school that was supposed to attend had to cancel, so I had a whole afternoon talking about all the things that inspired Redwall. I was only 14 at the time, but it really made a huge impact on me. I had drawn him a picture of two of my favorite characters and he was genuinely thrilled with it. His descriptions of food will live on with me forever. Girl I worked with won the opportunity to meet Rihanna backstage before a show. She was one of like 10 people standing in a line as she went from person to person. They were all told before she walked in that she would not be saying anything because her voice needed to be relaxed before going on stage. Rihanna ended up complimenting my friend's dress. I met Chuck Norris in 7th grade. He told me he likes my attitude. As of now, my parents have had no luck with finding the picture. I know it exists though because sometimes they pull it out and show it to people to embarrass me. I will update again as soon as I find it. He told me he likes my attitude. Redundant information. If he didn't like your attitude, you wouldn't have survived the meeting. I met Arnold Schwarzenegger before he went into politics. I yelled Conan at the top of my lunges and he smiled and yelled back, "Crom to heck with you" on a street cross. You've given me a new workout idea. I won a radio concert to have a semi-private concert with Jason Mraz. I got to request a song for him to play. He was 15 feet away from me sitting on a stool with his guitar. I'm pretty sure I requested Sleep All Day or Too Much Food. Afterwards, if you were a contest winner, you got to meet him, get an autograph and take a picture with him. His song The Remedy was written about a friend who was fighting cancer. I asked him how his friend was doing. His face lit up and said he was doing really well and was traveling with them on tour. I also gave him 2 sunflowers because in the Remedy video he puts a sunflower in a soldier's gun. I did this basically in hopes that when I told the story 13 years later, he would remember me and think I was awesome. I also have an autograph from David Schwimmer from Friends. He was in a play and I waited at the back door of the theater. I got carried away with the excitement of meeting David Schwimmer. I yelled, "I love you, David." I kind of forgot I was only standing like 4 feet from him. He looked up and looked me dead in the eyes with no expression. I confused myself and wanted to have not done that. I too had an experience with Mr. Mraz. I was an awkward 15-year-old setting up folding chairs in the stadium while he was doing a rehearsal for that evening. I was so enthralled with his singing I accidentally knocked over a ton of chairs, taking myself with them. He stopped and asked if I was okay, and after he received a red-faced thumbs up from me, continued his song. Won't ever forget that. Not a day with, but spent several hours at a bar with. Was at a bar with 3 friends in Montana. We hit it off with this guy and ended up bullshitting with him for about 3.5 hours. It was obvious that he had money because he was looking at a multi-million-dollar vacation home, but none of us thought any more about that. Guy was cool, bought all of our drinks, refused letting us buy our own and wouldn't let us buy his drinks. Really cool guy, super chill and unassuming. At the end of the night when the bar was closing, I said, "Hey, by the way, I am first and last name." He responded, "Hey, I am Derek Jeter. I don't follow baseball, but I definitely know that name." I asked him, "You mean the Derek Jeter?" To which he replied, "That would be me." Pretty cool to meet someone famous that way. I really got to see how he is when he is just being himself. Seriously cool guy. Derek is by all accounts a class act guy. In his book, he stresses the golden rule and it's amazing to hear him practice what he preaches. I'd honestly love to get the opportunity to meet him. Not me, but my cousin. She had terminal cancer and was featured in People magazine when they did a story on a hospice that she was living at. She was 17, living in a hospice, and demanded that she be able to bring her pet chickens with her. So I guess they thought it'd be a good story. Anyways, first thing was that she was wearing an Evanescence t-shirt in the article photo, so Emily called her up and they had a few long phone conversations, which was very nice. Second thing was that the article mentioned that she absolutely adored Johnny Depp. Lo and behold, one of his people saw the article. He called her and invited her entire family to his beach house where they were filming Pirates. He basically gave 6 people an all expense paid vacation for a week. showed them around the movie set, introduced them to other celebrities. He had extravagant sit-down dinners with them every night and everyone said he was incredibly humble and generous. She died a few months later, but I still remember her excitement when she told me all about her vacation with Johnny. When Johnny is sober he sounds like a heck of a good person. This isn't a meet and greet but a story of celebratory good doing. In 1998 Elton John and Billy Joel performed in Auckland and my parents went along. Not having much money and scraping together to attend it, they were in the very back row. After they got to the concert it turned out that Billy Joel had bought the tickets to the front 3 rows and upgraded the back 3 rows. My parents ended up being front row and when Billy Joel put his guitar pick down on stage mum nabbed it and still keeps it in her wallet to this day. Not quite winning, just being in the right place at the right time. I was about 6 or so and my mom was super into WWF. At the time, WrestleMania came to town, and we happened to live a block from where they were working out. I go in, and I have my hopes up, because all I want is to meet Stone Cold Steve Austin. At the time, at least according to my mom, he had his whole feud with The Rock happening. Turns out, my wrestler wasn't there, but The Rock was. My mom was pretty stoked, and she chatted with him. He said she had a cute kid. I glowered at him the entire time because he was my worst enemy, as far as I was concerned. Also met China, who was apparently not all that nice. I barely remember it all. My best friend was working with a French photographer. He was Ray doing her website. He's quite in his own world. He was, one day, working at her place. She told him a friend would come to take some pics. So, this guy came, had his pics taken and spent the whole day with them. They had lunch and this American guy made them pasta while they were working. The whole day, my friend was like, I think I know that guy, but he couldn't figure out who he was. Back home, he talked about it with his wife. She works in the film industry. He told her he thought the American guy was an actor. She took a book she had with all main actors' pictures. My friend had spent a full day and got served homemade spaghetti by George Clooney and he didn't know who he was. I guess the fact he was not shy or impressed by Clooney did help them relate. If George Clooney talked to me, my brain would immediately shut down. Probably because all the blood would be in my dong. Ran into John Malkovich at a dive bar in New Orleans called Johnny White's. I realized who he was and the bar was pretty empty, so while I was ordering my drink I looked over at him and asked, has anyone ever told you that you have a startling resemblance to John Malkovich? He slyly smiled and told me that he gets that all the time. I laughed and walked out with my drink in hand. You smooth mother. Not a spend a day thing. Actually even better. When I was 9, Devon Sawa came to my house. This was at the pinnacle of his stardom when he was young and hot and all over Teen Beat and Tiger Beat magazines. I had posters of him plastered all over my bedroom and watched Casper and Now and Then probably a million times. My 2 cousins and I were obsessed and in love with Devon Sawa. Turns out my uncle went to high school with him and they were friends. He finds out how obsessed we are and plans to bring him by my house the next time he's in town. And he did. Imagine your biggest celebrity crush when you're only 9 years old coming over to your house. We all screamed like idiots when we saw him and my uncle pull up in a red convertible. He was so nice and just as cute in person. He sat with my uncle and my mom on our patio, drinking beers and just hanging out while we brought out poster after poster for him to sign and had our pictures taken with him. Eventually my mom told us to leave him alone and stop bringing out posters, lol. When he was leaving, we cried and gave him roses and my one cousin said, "Can I keep you?" His famous line from Casper. He was all smiles and hugged us all goodbye and told my mom we were too adorable. Just a genuinely cool dude who was willing to let his buddy he probably hadn't even seen in a while drag him to a modest townhouse out in the suburbs to make a couple kids' days while he was probably pretty busy cause his career was going great at the time. I'll never ever forget that. Devon, if you ever see this, you are freaking rad and I still have a wicked crush, lol. My dad sat next to Ray Lewis at one of our school concerts. My dad is 6 feet 5 inches and noticed the guy was tall, but didn't realize it was Ray Lewis. So he made some joke about the lack of leg room, but Ray Lewis did not respond. This is such a dad story. It wasn't a contest that I won, but in my school we had an anti-bullying group, which one day was getting a visit from Sir Ian McKellen. I wasn't in the group, but me and some friends heard about it and we just wanted to meet the man that played Gandalf. I took my trilogy book of lot ready just in case and we hung outside the room he was meeting in hoping to catch him on the way out. The headmaster wasn't happy about us being there and was saying we should go away, but I think Ian McKellen heard us outside and asked what was happening. So when he heard, he allowed us to come in and sit on the floor as he spoke. I was pretty starstruck to say the least. Anyway, as he was finishing he was doing autographs for people. Well, I was nervous but pulled my book out, which he did the sweetest signature in, with a self-drawn picture of Gandalf. Refused to even read that book now. After it had finished, me and my friend hovered downstairs hoping to catch him once more to thank him for letting us come in, and we chanced asking for a picture, which he was happy to do. Has to be the coolest experience with meeting a celebrity so far for me. He came to my school too as part of a campaign to stop LGBT bullying in schools. Hung out in classes all day, including one of mine. Ate lunch in the school cafe. Chatted to anyone who came up. Was a really nice guy. I was ill that day. Biggest missed opportunity of my life. I ended up vacationing at the same resort as Michael Jordan in 2004, in the Turks and Caicos, and he was doing 1v1s against the dads and his kids were 2v2 on the other courts. Super fun dude to hang around. His kids were a blast and we spent many hours in the arcades and on the basketball courts together. Holy cow, there's a lot of MJ hate. He wasn't a jerk. No money was put down. People were respectful of his time and his vacation. I've met him other times and he can be a bit of a jerk if people pee him off. About 3-4 years ago, my dad played golf with Jay-Z and his business partner manager in Orlando when we were on vacation. Just the three of them. Since my dad is retired, all he does is play golf now and has gotten a pretty good. Apparently he caught up to them on the course and instead of having him play through, they asked if he wanted to join them. So my dad joins them and plays the next 14 holes with them. My dad had no idea who Jay-Z was. He just thought they were a couple of nice guys and didn't mind spending his day on the golf course with them. When he got back home, he was telling me and my mom about his golf day. The conversation went something like this. Dad, I played golf with some guy named Steve Carter or something. Me. That's nice, Dad. Dad, wait, number. Sean Carter. He said he was a rapper or something. Me. Wait, what? Googles a picture of Jay-Z and shows my dad. This guy? Dad, yeah, that's him. Me. Jaw hits the floor as dad goes to the refrigerator to make a sandwich. Terry Bradshaw held me when I was 2 weeks old and commented on us having the same amount of hair. He then told my parents this boy's gonna do big things. Mr. Bradshaw was wrong. It wasn't a contest, but interesting anyway. In the early 80s, my mother was an editor at a pretty prestigious newspaper. One of her co-workers said that his cousin was in town and was stopping by. My mom and her co-worker's cousin ended up going out for a casual lunch, not a date. Apparently this co-worker's cousin was Carl Sagan himself. My mother had no idea who this guy was or how important he was. She ate lunch with a guy and never once brought up the universe or any of the usual topics that one would discuss with Carl Sagan. My co-worker later told my mom how impressed and relieved his cousin was that he was able to have a normal lunch without discussing the same old stuff. TL. Doctor, my mother had lunch with Carl Sagan without knowing who he was. A relative of mine worked with him for years. She said he wasn't the nicest guy in the world. I somehow won a contest to meet the cast of Spider-Man 3. I think it was on a promotional site for the video game. It wasn't an all-day thing, but we were supposed to be able to meet them backstage for a bit, take pictures, etc. I remember sitting down next to a guy and watching him play Spider-Man 3 on PS3. He was complaining about not being able to kill random people on the street to some PR guy from Activision. At one point he turned and looked at me and I realized it was James Franco. I never ever thought I'd be the kind of person who would be starstruck, but it goes a bit beyond that. I completely froze in place and was unable to do or say anything. He may have said hello, but it's all a blur. It was a completely involuntary reaction and I'm not sure how long the exchange lasted, but I think he got uncomfortable and turned around. He left pretty shortly after that. Over the years I've learned that I can't see a famous person in real life without shutting down. Even obscure D-list people or reality TV people. I saw some lady from Cervica in a Costco once and I turned into a human statue until she left the aisle. I do wonder if James Franco remembers getting stared into submission by a creepy fat dude in NYC though. Oh, he remembers all right. Not a whole day, but when I was 15 I got an invitation to spend an hour with my favorite band before a show. I started a small fan site for the band and the night before the concert I got an email telling me to turn up and X time and place and bring some sort of it. I was babysitting that night and happened to check my email there and almost woke the kid up screaming with excitement. I went the next day and a group of around 6 of us got led to a back room in the venue and soon the band walked in. We got to spend an hour just hanging around talking. They signed a bunch of stuff for us and we all got a photo with them. Afterwards they let us into the main concert area before they opened the door, so we all got to stand right at the front on the barrier. During the show the singer was singing while looking right at me and kept leaning over to grab my hand, passed me his used guitar picks and did pretty much everything he could to make that night super special for me. Every girl in that place wanted to kill me that night as most had a crush on him. My mother also loved the band, so she was at the concert with me and also came backstage. She had whispered into the singer's ear telling him that I had been struggling with depression for years, diagnosed aged 4, and used the band's music to help and thanked him for writing it, so he spent the whole night spoiling me to try and help. It had me on an upper for months afterwards and was pretty much the best thing anyone could have done for me. The band was Stained BTW. Just realized I never mentioned it. My fiance's little sister had a make-a-wish this year and she wanted to hang out with Ty Pennington. They said that he was as charismatic as he is on TV and super friendly. I didn't know much about him before, but he's a winner in my book. I briefly worked for Make-A-Wish as an intern. I helped set up a kid to meet Shaq when he was with the Lakers. Shaq couldn't have been a cooler dude. He lifted the kid up so he could dunk and then brag that he dunked on Shaq. He went way past his allotted tone just talking to the family. My friend won a radio contest to meet NSYNC back in 1997. We could spend, as we were told, 5 hours with them. Well, technically spent 4 hours 1/2 watching them talk to some interviewers in the back of the hall where they were in concert that night. Then our turn came. We could not touch them or ask for pictures. My English sucked. Ended up with my name written in 4 different ways on the signed poster I had. Then came the group picture. Again, do not touch them. I mean, this was early 97. They were not that big yet. The worst was Lance's attitude. Diva-ish. Justin had his ramen on. Very snobbish. I was disappointed because they were my first star encounter. Met the Spice Girls just after and they were amazing. They were inaccessible from the start. I'm still a groupie for pop artists and I have met other groups. Every time it was a charm. Some artists are very generous of their time. Then you have the entitled groupies who will ruin a good occasion, like when I met Brian Littrell from the BSB. He felt surrounded and some girls were asking him to perform some kind of joke for the camera and he sarcastically started to act like a circus seal. Noises included. Got that on tape. Felt so bad when said girls applauded and screamed of joy while he kept his cool. Another didn't win a contest, but my brother went to school with Donald Faison's son. They were doing their confirmation, I think, and at one point all of the sponsors had to go on this retreat together. I'm a huge Scrubs fan, but I'm trying my best not to fanboy. Turns out Donald is super chill. He's really into photography and I had brought my camera cause the place we were at was in upstate NY, aka nature that my NYC self wasn't used to. He ends up talking to me about it and we legit talked about photography and our opinions on print versus digital for about 2 hours. He's on Reddit, dude. But I don't know his username. My friend won a contest at my school to meet Mother Mother, who was one of my favorite bands, but gave the ticket to me because he'd never heard of them. I was about 7th in line out of 10, and they were really excited because I knew who they were and wasn't just meeting them to say I did. They were incredibly nice and signed an extra poster for me. Didn't win a contest or anything, but I have friends that play professional basketball, NBA and overseas. They're all just a big kids at heart like me, except they're a foot taller and millions of dollars richer. The big thing you really notice though is their lack of privacy when you go out in public. Whenever we're in the same town and try to grab dinner to catch up, my friends like to have a table in the back corner. It's hard to get through a meal without someone wanting a picture. Kentucky players are like 50% of the NBA, so really it could be anyone. Met Flash Gordon, Sam Jones. He is an awesome dude who's just incredibly nice and charming. We talked about Ted and Ted 2 and how he got involved, and he told me a story about being seen at the airport and everyone thinking he was Dolph Lundgren. Met John Wesley Shipp, who played the Flash in the 90s and also Barry's dad on the CW Flash. Once again, an awesome dude who's incredibly nice and charming. We discussed our favorite scenes in the show, season 2 spoilers, filming of season 3, and just questions about the Flash and his life in general. He invited me to a Comic-Con and to go to his Q&A. Probably my favorite celebrity encounter. Also met Jay from Jay and Silent Bob. Dude says he's been clean but still acts like he's on drugs. Nice guy but doesn't really seem to care or pay attention to what you're saying. IDK if they count, but I met the comic book men and all I can say is frick those guys. They're complete buttholes. I came up to them at a con, as a fan, and they treated me like I was annoying them and a waste of time. I quit watching their show after the way they treated me. Ming was the only remotely nice one. Forgot to mention when Grown Ups 2 was filming in Marblehead, MA, I met Adam Sandler, and he is one friendly guy. Even though he always looks like he's depressed, he's actually extremely nice, kind, friendly and happy. I also met Peter Dante on the same set and shouted Needle Dong. Needle Dong. He came up to me and said water sucks, Gatorade is better, then asked if I'd like a picture with him and we took one. I'd link it if I knew how on mobile. Also met the dude in all the Adam Sandler movies with the cross eye. I forget his name. Edit. Jonathan Lauren. I gave him a napkin in an ice cream shop and he said thanks lol. That's it. Jay asked one of the randoms I met at Comic Con if he was gonna try to frick him up the butt after Jay leaned over the table to sign a Clark's poster. He's a cool dude. Unfortunately, I missed out on meeting Kevin Smith because he was attending a separate event and frick buying 2 different tickets. I saw an episode of Hulk Hogan's show in which some kid won a day with the Hulkster. It was awkward. The kid was just completely over the moon and Hulk was just completely over it. In his defense, Hulk had been going through the worst parts of his problems. Pending divorce, legal crap, money problems, kid problems. But it was just awkward. They didn't know what to do. Finally Hulk asked if the kid would like a ride in the boat. Done. So they went and did that. I liked Terry Bollea. I liked him before it was cool too. And I still like him. But man, that was one weird show. Like the time he wouldn't get Brooke the braided pearl tampons because he thought they were obscene lol. Didn't win a contest, but I got a guitar lesson from Mark Tremonti, the current guitarist of Alter Bridge and Tremonti and former guitarist of Creed. He was one of the most down-to-earth musicians that I have ever met. He was genuinely interested in hearing what we had to say and had nothing but nice things to say. He said to me throughout the lesson that he loved my guitar and was impressed with how fast I could pick up techniques and that I was one of the best students he's had. After the lesson he gave us a tour of his live rig and we got to watch soundcheck. That will always be a day that I will remember. Guess we're going with I met saw celebrity once story, so I'll throw mine in. I was coming back to Australia from Argentina after visiting family. Sydney is where the majority of people coming from overseas go through immigration to get into the country. I was 12 at the time, waiting in line to get my passport checked when I realized Billy Connolly is at the front. He had a guitar and a small carry-on bag with him. I said to my mum, I think that's Billy Connolly. She had no idea who that was, but I said it loud enough for him to hear me. He looked back at me and smiled before going through customs. I just imagine him smiling, strolling through the gates, and then his bag explodes. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.